Hi, hello everybody. My name is Arne Verhaegen and I'm the CEO of EduFuture. And EduFuture is a company that for the last decade has been organizing study visits to the Finnish education system. We have had many groups from Ukraine. We've been working together with EdCamp as well before, and also I visited Kharkiv like a couple of years ago. So it's with pain in my heart that I see all the things that are happening to you, and I definitely support the Ukrainian state fighting for its independence. Yeah, so about myself, originally I'm a history teacher, now turned into like an entrepreneur, but education is close to my heart, and especially Finnish education, since I believe it has really many good aspects that all other nations in the world can learn from. So I will share a bit my presentation with you, and then afterwards, like you can just see as well and just hear my voice. So enjoy the ride. So let's put it into slideshow. All right. So I think the most important thing, what I always think about the Finnish education system is less is more, and we will get to that. If you want to find out more about myself and the company, it's called EduFuture, and you can find any links there as well. So the Finnish education system. This is Finland. Finland is a very big country for European standards, not as big as Ukraine, of course, but still really big. It's the same size than Germany. But Finland has a very small population. Finland has only 5.5 million people and has many lakes. So it's known as the land of the thousand lakes. But like you see, we have more than 187,000 lakes. And one other thing that's really important is that Finland is the happiest country in the world. So we will get back to that later as well, because maybe it has an impact of how the society is formed. And maybe the first secret I can give you is to drink more coffee, because Finnish people consume the most coffee in the world. So Finland is the happiest country in the world again, and I think it's now the third year in a row that Finland has been chosen by the UN as being the happiest country in the world. And why are they happy? It's not because they have asked people like, are you happy? Because that would be difficult, but the main issues in Finland, or the main points that make Finland so scoring high on this happiness index, is there's a lot of freedom, there's a lot of equality, education is really important, honesty is very important, healthcare is very important, trust is very important, and of course you have nature, very easy daily life, and of course sauna. Sauna may be the other secret. After coffee and sauna, we get to high performing Finland. So Finland is performing high in many fields. It's just not in education. You know that Finland has scoring high in education. That's why I was asked to present here. But Finland is also scoring high on other things. Like for instance, it's doing very well in innovations, and it's a very green country, and also it's a very socially just country. That means that it's very good to be, for instance, a mother in Finland. And it's also, there is not a real class society. So it doesn't matter how much money you have, everybody will get a chance to study. And the history, I think it's important to know that Finland was not always like this. And especially for countries in transitions like Ukraine, and especially the education system, it's important to know that you can change something, that you can make a change if you're willing to make a change. And one of the main things is that Finland invested in their people as their capital. So most countries in the world choose something else, like, you have, or Norway has gas and oil, for instance. But in Finland, the people are the most important. So Finland has, since the 70s, started investing in their education system. And in the beginning, before that, it was very centralized, but very inequitable. and very highly variable teachers. Finland was a poor country, but then they changed. And one of the reasons was they invested in education. So education became one of the pillars of the Finnish society up till today. And then you can see that slowly it started changing in the 70s, 80s. They changed it. They put teachers into universities and they did entrance exams, which nowadays is the hardest profession to become in Finland. It's harder to become a primary school teacher than it is to become a doctor in Finland. So just to give you an example how important teachers are in the Finnish society. And from the 1980s to 2000, you had a complete decentralization of the education system because teachers were trained and they trust teachers doing a great job. So they ended inspection. So in Finland, there is no inspection anymore in schools because teachers are trusted and the local authorities are trusted. So everything is arranged on a municipal level. And then slowly you see that since 2000, it's becoming more of a student-oriented and flexible system. It's based on empowerment of students, where students are really the center of the educational system and the learning. What means there's also a lot of help for students when they don't have the opportunities or the possibilities to develop themselves in the speed like others. There's a lot of support. So that means student counseling, tutoring, special needs education. But often, because it's arranged on a municipal level, you also have a school nurse, school doctor, school psychologist, social worker. And this doesn't cost a ton of money. Many people say, wow, this gonna cost a lot of money. But Finland is not investing a lot of money of their GDP into education. So I think what the real secret is efficiency and the lack of bureaucracy. Many countries, and I bet Ukraine is one of them, there's a need for stamps, there's a need for signatures, there's a need for papers. Teachers have to fill in papers, principals have to fill in papers. And in Finland, this is not the case. There is not so many bureaucratic background. So that means that all efforts and financial means can be focused on the development of education and teaching as a whole. Also, education is always developed in partnerships. It's really interesting, but in Finland, the national level exists of two bodies. You have the Minister of Education, which actually has very little power in Finland, which is good because education should not be a part of politics, I think. And this is the case in Finland, that the Minister of Education has actually very little influence on or has no influence on the pedagogical side of the education system. So it doesn't matter if you have a right-wing government or a left-wing government, the path of education, the pedagogical part, will always be going forward, not backwards, not to the right or not to the left, but really stays into the vision of partners, into the vision of education that was developed in partnership with the local authorities, the teachers' union, which is very important in Finland, parents, pupils and students, and other research institutions like universities and other relevant stakeholders. So this is a very important part. Take what has happened in Finland, to take education out of politics. So you don't get these constant changes every couple of years when there's a new government in place. The basic principles of Finnish education are trust, responsibility. Excuse me for that. So trust and responsibility are in the center of the Finnish society as a whole. And I know I've talked with many people about it, and trust and responsibility are unfortunately very hard to transport or to export to any place in the world, because it's a part of the culture. But in Finland, it's really the crucial part in many aspects of life. People are trusted for the experts they are. For instance, I'm a teacher, I will be trusted by the principal, by the government. There's nobody gonna come and inspect on me. But of course, it brings responsibility because parents and students expect me to do my job properly. So it goes hand in hand, trust and responsibility. important is that it's free at all levels education, which really means free. There is no fees that have to be paid by the parents. And this is, of course, we want it to be as equal as possible. So it doesn't matter if your parents, both parents are millionaires and or you have parents that are both unemployed. You can go to this, you will go, if you live close to each other, to the same school. And you will play together with kids that have a lot of money, but it's not the point. It's like free for everybody. And people also do that. People, again, trust in this system. For teachers, it's very highly educational and autonomy. So they have a high educational autonomy, which means that they can do in the classroom how they please. Meaning that, like, if they like to do flipped learning or other forms of innovative practices and pedagogical teaching methods, they can do like they please. And of course, they can try things out as well. They're very flexible. So if you talk with a Finnish person, Finnish teacher, Finnish principal, or just a parent, or anybody, because for that matter, everybody has been to the schools, they will always tell you a different story, slightly different story, because everything is extremely flexible. There is not one way to do things, because we're all individual people, so everybody is different. And then, of course, you get the support and equality. Teachers are highly educated. And another important thing is standardization. Many countries in the world have gone through standardization. Like, let's test everybody at the same age to see how everybody's doing. And based on that, define their future. And Finland doesn't do that. There's many cases that you won't do the year again. Rarely, it actually happens that you will do the year again. Like, there is no point, they believe, to fail students. So failing is not a part of the Finnish education system. That means there is no national tests and there's no rankings between schools because it's not necessary. The other basic principle of the Finnish education system is everybody is needed and everybody is taken care of. And this links with the fact that I said before that the most important capital of Finland are its people. So that means you want to invest in everybody, and everybody needs to be taken care of. And that starts when you're born, in the maternity or child health care. And then after a year and a half, many kids go to early childhood education and care. And then at the age of 6, they go to pre-primary school. And then afterwards, continue just the primary school and secondary school. So here you see the track of the average lifespan of a child into education. So these are the ages on average: early childhood education and care. This is around till like you're 6 years of age, then you go to pre-primary, and then at the age of 7, you go to basic education, and also afterwards to secondary education. It could be vocational or upper secondary schools. And then the most important in early childhood education and care, as you can see here, and it goes through in pre-primary as well, is play. In Finland, kids are not taught in the same way than many other countries, where kids are sitting on benches and already they're starting teaching them to learn, to read and write, and doing some mathematics and all this kind of stuff. In Finland, they're really just there, and the most important is to interact with their environment, both socially and physically. There's no learning standards. There is, of course, there is a curriculum, but there's not like in the sense that there is mathematics or sitting. And this continues into pre-primary, and they go only 4 hours a day to school. You know that we have this magic of 1 hour is 45 minutes. So that means that kids go to school around 9:30, and will be out around 1:30. So in the afternoon. Then often there is like in pre-primary and also in the first 2 grades of primary school, there it will happen as well that they will beautifully, can stay in an afternoon class. But of course, after that, kids are just going home by themselves. And this is because there is a joy of learning. So there's not a lot of pressure on the teachers. It is one of the cartoons I found from the US, which there is a lot of pressure, and I can imagine that also in Ukraine and many other countries in the world, there's a lot of pressure on the teacher, on the student, on the administrator. So, what are the basic principles of the comprehensive school system? It's 9 years, and it's the same for the whole age groups. So the school year is the same everywhere, and you have also 5 periods of 7 weeks. So every 7 weeks, the curriculum, like the program, will change. So the course schedule will change, and this gives a lot of freedom. The teaching is provided to the schools near to the home, so you don't choose where you put your child. Your child is always going to the nearest school. This means that there is no competition, and it's non-selective. Like I said before, there are no national tests, so there's no degrees, no ranking, and a final certificate will be given at the end of these 9 years. And everything is for free, which means school books, teaching materials, the school transportation, school meals. So that means that everybody in the whole country should have the same access to education. And this is because there's hardly any private schools in Finland. You have some private schools, but in general, the whole system is a nationalized system. So everybody sends their kids to the nearest school. They believe in the teachers that are highly educated. They believe in the principal. They believe in the school system. So there is not this criticism and like of a constant need to prove that what you're doing is right or great. And this also means because you have all this support and the well-being is the most important, so not failing, but like creating people that can be good with their own self, learning and discovering the world. So there's a very low dropout rate. So no child left behind. It should have been a Finnish policy, but it's a US policy. But like everything in many countries, you like to test. This is often you do testing just to see how things are going. And in Finland, again, you don't give grades in the first 5 like grades of primary school. So meaning that the first 5 years of primary school till the kids are 12, there are no grades given to the kids. And here we come to the final conclusion of the whole system, that it's less is more. So there's less instruction time. Like I said, there's only 3 to 5 lessons of 45 minutes. And there's a lot of breaks. The days are very short, and there's a lot of play in the days. There's less testing because there is no standardization. So it doesn't mean there's no national test you have to work towards. You can really have the assessment as part of the daily work. Just, of course, to check if students are doing well, not to fail them. There's less topics in the curriculum, because if you have a lot of topics, they believe in Finland, it's confusing, so they like to work these periods in every period of 7 weeks, so 5 periods of 7 weeks. They like to work with like very in-depth with one topic, for instance, like mathematics, and then let it go in the second period, and then get it back in the third period. There's less homework, because of course you're not working towards standardization. There's not all the materials you have to see. So that means that there's more free time to explore. And of course, there is very little students in the class, which means on average there's 17 kids. Of course, in cities it's way more, in the countryside it's less. So it means more care and individual attention. So this is the lessons per week. So in general, in the first 2 grades, they go 19 hours, and by the 9th grade, and they're like 16 years old, they go 30 hours to school. And why I say that less is more is that when they're 16 or 15, they take part in these PISA tests, and there we can see that they have 1,100 hours less of education than the OECD average. So they go less to school. They have way less classes, but still they score very high in these tests. So I think this is the proof that it's not more and more and more, but it's less, less, less. Of course, special needs and inclusion is super important in Finland. And this is how it goes. Like you have general support, you have the learning plan, and then you have intensified support and special support. So you can see here there's three, it's called the 3-tier system. And like everything in Finland, it's not only one way. So you can always go back to like general support, even if you had intensified support. So the system is really made to get everybody on board till around the age of 16. And then afterwards, students decide they go to general upper secondary school, vocational school, they go do other studies like IB studies and others like, that they don't continue immediately and you can go back later. So I think this is a bit the conclusion of this presentation, that the comprehensive school system in Finland is the most famous. It's very good, and then afterwards, people decide at the age of 16 to continue to or upper secondary school, vocational school, or to any other studies. So for this, I think it's like a good introduction to like the pedagogical practices in Finland, like some good new insights how the system works. And of course, I gladly answer any questions later on as well. If you have questions or we need like some more info, we can do another session about this as well. So thank you very much for listening. And yeah, I'm wishing you all the best.